I'm going to call the city council workshop to order for November 13th, 2018. Let the record show that the entire council, with the exception of Mr. Johnson, is present. First item is DS 18-095, discuss agenda item for our regular city council meeting of November 27th, 2018. And the first thing is our resolutions, RS 18-103, consider memorandum resolution amending an interlocal agreement with the Texas General Land Office for electric service. This is interlocal.
Greetings, Mayor and council members. This agenda item is to discuss the current electricity contracts and the possibility of some future savings. Since 2008, the Texas General Land Office has been our electricity provider through an interlocal agreement between the city and the state of Texas. GLO is represented by Cavallo Energy of Texas, and I do have Ms. Patricia Young in the audience tonight. She represents Cavallo, and she's the subject matter expert if we do have any questions. The GLO electricity program is the only available to public sector consumers for their specialized needs, and the GLO currently serves about 400 of those public sector customers in Texas. So through active management of our electric contracts, we continue to reduce the cost of electricity. This chart shows the history of our contracts and the pricing per kilowatt hour. So from 2008, we paid a little over 8 cents per kilowatt hour, and through 2016, with an amendment, we're paying a little over 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour. The energy markets do change daily, and so does the pricing for electricity. As natural gas supplies and renewable resources have increased, the opportunity to reach those additional savings in our lower rates, our electricity rates is present. We can leverage our low energy prices with market dynamics and extend the contracts with GLO and Cavallo to secure additional future savings. The city currently budgets a little over $3 million for its electricity services. I've got 3 different graphs here, and this really gets into a lot of history and information about electricity pricing. This graph shows the decline in cost per megawatt hour since 2015, 2016, and projected low prices continuing through 2024 and 2025. This is the natural gas prices, which are largely flat. Since the majority of electricity is generated using natural gas, this graph shows that natural gas pricing has declined over the last 3 years and is leveling out. The heat rate is the efficiency factor on which natural gas plants operate. So the more efficiency the gas plants operate, the lower the cost for electricity. So that brings us to several options when looking at our electricity contracts. Option 1 is to lock into the current pricing per kilowatt hour, and we would do that on 11, 27, and 18. We could then realize savings in fiscal year 19, and we can also take advantage of blending the pricing from our various contract periods. Option 2 is to set a target price of 0.3775 per kilowatt hour for up to 180 days to achieve that target, and then lock that price and still blend our current pricing. Option 3 would be to defer our electricity contracts for July 2023 forward and not modify any contracts. So in summary, we can take advantage of low market pricing and amend our terms for a period of not to exceed 36 months. We can establish a target price for a new term not to exceed 0.03775 per kilowatt hour, and GLO will strive to reach that target price within 180 days of November 27, 2018. And it will include an amendment that allows the city to blend our term pricing to one contract price, which will lower our fiscal year 19 electricity expenses. So the recommendation is Alternative or option number 2, and that the city manager and his designee be authorized to execute an amendment that allows Texas GLO with Cavallo to extend the city of Killeen's interlocal agreement up to 36 months from July 1, 2023 to no later than June 30th, 2026, at or below the target price of 0.03775 per kilowatt hour if market conditions do allow. City council further authorizes the city manager or his designee and Texas GLO with Cavallo to blend electricity prices from all current contract terms to begin realizing cost savings in the current fiscal year. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Lee is also here if you have any questions.
Questions? Mr. Kilpatrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just doing some rough order of magnitude. As I understand it, right now, we budgeted for 19. We budgeted $3 million at a rate of 0.4637. Okay. Under 2, then we would lower that to 0.03775.
Yes, sir.
What savings would that give us then in the 19 budget?
So generate about $400,000 in savings.
400,000.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mrs. Seacole. Next is RS 18-104. Consider memorandum resolution authorizing the award of bid number 1907 for uniform services. Mr. Locke, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. The city contracts for uniform services and it helps maintain a professional image and clearly identifies city workers to the public. Uniform services for the city consist of uniform rentals and cleaning, as well as accessory items such as shop towels and floor mats. Currently, approximately 360 employees across 5 departments participate in the uniform services contract. And over the past couple of years, the cost of uniform services has ranged from about $152,000 to $182,000 annually. The city did go out for bid, and using the new price structure, we're estimating a savings in FY19, a small savings, and that the annual amount will come out to just over $150,000. The city did receive 2 proposals, one from Centos and UniFirst. A panel of 6 employees, representatives from the departments that use the uniform services, sat and evaluated the proposals as well as had interviews. The proposals were evaluated based on 10 criteria that was published in the bid. And Centos was the lowest bidder as well as scored best value. The contract term is for 3 years, and there is an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods. There are a couple alternatives to consider in this decision. The first would be to award the bid to Centos. The second would be to reject all bids and then rebid the uniform services. There's also an option where you can look at purchasing uniform and contracting with a laundry service or some other hybrid of the 2. And internally, staff has decided that contracting uniform services is the most cost effective. So it's staff's recommendation that City Council awards the bid for uniform services to Centos, and that the city manager or designee be authorized to execute any change orders as permitted by state local law. We have to answer any questions.
Mr. Kilpatrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From 16 to 19, we see a decrease every year. Can you give us an explanation? Is that fewer employees in using uniforms, or is it more efficiency in how they're providing? What caused the $30,000 decrease in 3 years?
It's more of the former and fewer employees using the service.
Mr. Mickey.
Yeah, Mr. Locke, is the 2 option years, both sides, I mean, we can execute it and they can finance it? Is that-
Yes.
And then are there financial changes built in, or is that just going to be the reason why it needs to be continued?
Yes, that would be a consideration on if both sides would agree to extend. They actually offer us their contract pricing that they have through a cooperative, and so those prices are set for the term of the agreement.
Okay, so the 3 years are set, the 2 options can be negotiated or exercised. But financial terms aren't built into the 2 years ahead of time.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
When you asked about the $30,000 difference, and you said it was just less employees, was that due to us having less employees, or do employees have the option to utilize it or not?
Just fewer departments participating in the uniform cleaning. There have been some departments that have opted to purchase T-shirts to wear, and they replace the T-shirts. Depending upon the wear that the department puts on is whether or not it necessitates having an actual uniform. And so there have been some departments that have opted out.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Nash King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we currently in a contract with this company?
No, ma'am, we are currently actually in contract with Uniforms, which is one of the 2 bids we received. They did not score the highest.
So when is the contract end with the other company?
I believe that it ends at I'll need to find out for sure for you, but I believe it's at the end of December.
Thank
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Locke. RS 18-105, consider memorandum resolution authorizing the award of bid number 1905 downtown streetscaping phase 2 project for a construction contract to Marsh Company. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the PowerPoint presentation. While we're getting that pulled up, just the background, this is a recommendation for bid award on the downtown streetscaping phase 2 project. You'll recall, we've talked about this project in the past. This is an extension of the streetscaping that was done previously. It extends along Avenue D from 8th Street to 10th Street. In June 2014, the original phase 1 downtown streetscaping project was completed. In January of 14, the KDC had contributed $300,000 towards the construction of phase 2, which was a larger scale project originally, as part of a performance agreement with Solix Incorporated. The original phase 2 project was bid and it came in significantly over budget. And at that time, bids were rejected due to the lack of funding. However, that did not relieve us from our commitment to KDC and Solix to construct a portion of this project using the $300,000 contributed by KDC. In 2018, this project was rescoped. We scaled it down to a smaller scale. Now it only includes Avenue D from 8th to 10th Street, and in an effort to satisfy that previous agreement. That has been put out to bid at this time. 2 bids were received, and Barsh Company was the lowest bidder at $440,227.90. This project is included in our fiscal year 2019 capital improvement program. We have 3 basic alternatives at this time. We could reject all bids. This would not be in compliance with the MOU that was approved by council previously regarding the performance agreement with Solix Incorporated. We could rebid the project. However, we don't feel that a rebid at this time would significantly impact our bid prices. We've seen a significant uptick in the cost and the price of steel lately, and that's causing our construction costs to be on the rise. We could then award a contract to Barsh Company in the amount of $440,227.90. And city staff is recommending that we do so. We'll award that contract to Barsh Company, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Harris.
So is KDC still, I guess, you want to say willing to donate contribute their $300,000?
They've already given us that.
Okay. And I guess I have to ask the question as well, just to make sure, I guess it doesn't happen again. How did it turn out that, I guess a deal was made, but we didn't have the funds to, I mean, did we think we had the funds? I mean,
So what happened with this project, there was a larger project that the city was committed to. So the city had done phase one of downtown streetscaping, and we were moving into phase two of that project. We were planning to do that project regardless of the KDC contribution or the deal with Solix. It was just part of the project, and we were going to undertake that effort as a city. So we saw a couple of things. There was an uptick in construction costs that caused some bids to be a little higher. And then there was a significant amount of drainage improvement that had to be done with the original project scope. And the combination of those two resulted in a bid that was about $1 million higher than was originally expected. So the money was there to do the project. At that time, it was a $2 million project. Bids came in around $3 million. So we had money to do $2 million worth, and KEDC just said, we've got another parallel item going on, and they contributed their $300,000 towards that original project at that time. So when we rejected bids, then we still have an obligation to go back and satisfy that original memorandum of understanding we entered with KDC and Solus.
so you said the original intent did include that area that
Yes.
KDC wanted to.
Yes. And it included it before any discussion with KDC.
Okay, so just make sure, so we're good now, right? Because I could be
Yes.
surprised by anything.
Yes, sir. Now, this is, the limit of our surprises have been reached barring any major unearthing, when we start to excavate a roadway. But we don't expect that to happen.
This is fun.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, I just want to ask one question. Has Bosch Company ever been contracted with the city before?
Yes, ma'am, and they've done some
How
great
many
work.
times have they been contracted with
I
the city?
don't know the exact number of times. I know when we did our reference check process, though, they have worked for us in the past, and they had no indication of negative reports.
Okay, so that's good to know that we've had him before and they have done a great job. Okay, just wanted to know that. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Mrs. Nash King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Olson had stated that there was a drainage problem downtown. Are we gonna address that problem?
The drainage project is part of a future project that we'll undertake, but we did not pull that large-scale drainage project into this project.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
I do want to make a comment to Mr. Harris's question or concern, and that is that when I first got to the city a couple of years ago, I noticed that there were a number of commitments and a number of projects that were committed to Rosewood Street comes to mind, but there were others that the city had committed to without having a full understanding of the financial impact. I think we've worked through those. I'm not aware of any others hanging out there that we have commitments to, and we have been paying very close attention to that since that time, so that we don't make commitments that we are not prepared to live with. So I'm not saying a mistake won't happen sometime, but we've got our eye on it. We're trying very hard not to let that happen.
You're good. I think it's a great project. Anything that happens downtown, especially when KDC is paying $300,000. And part of this agreement is something we had worked out over several months that has created, as part of them creating those. That's the mayor speaking now. The scanning service that's going to be downtown. That's part, because they have called me asking me when that's going to happen, the company. It's like, we're bringing 200 jobs. Why don't you guys live up to your agreement? I was like, that's when I called Mr. Olson and said, what the heck's going on here? But even with that said, I think anything that improves our downtown, it's great. So, Thank you, Mr. Olson. Moving on to ordinances, OR 18-013, consider an ordinance authorizing the update of Texas Municipal Retirement System Service Credit. Mrs. Clark, welcome.
All right, the funding of the retirement updated service credit and COLA through the TMRS was approved during the FY19 budget. This is a housekeeping measure to formally approve the spending of the budgeted money. So let me start with a little bit of background. The city of Killeen has been a member of TMRS since 1968. The employees deposit a 7% rate with a 2-to-1 match for the city. The employee must work 5 years to meet the vesting requirements. An employee may retire with 5 years of service, age 60 or older, or 20 years of service at any age. It is standard for cities our size to adopt the USC and COLAs repeating, and once adopted, the provisions actually take effect on January the 1st. The city, this is a slide that shows our history, because the city of Killeen adoption behavior has been consistently ad hoc. So it kind of just shows you where we funded it and how we, and we contributed to it. And the decision has already been made, and the funding has already been included in the FY19 budget. So our staff recommends that the city council authorize the city manager or designee to execute the ordinance to authorize the updated service credits and COLA for retirees that is already included in the FY19 budget, and adopt a contribution rate of 11.15 beginning on January the 1st of next year. I think John will be up to explain this slide. There you are. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and the City Council. I wanted to just briefly discuss some changes in accounting that will impact this particular decision. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB, issued a statement that changed how state and local governments account and report for pensions. This change became effective for fiscal years that began after June of 2014. The most significant change was in how benefits were projected. And what GASB required was that automatic benefit changes, as well as ad hoc benefit changes, that they met a certain criteria, had to be considered and reported on the city's balance sheet. TMRS defines, the Texas Municipal Retirement System defines substantively automatic as a benefit granted in 2 of the last 5 years. And on a prior slide that Ms. Park showed you, that the last time the city adopted the USC was in January of 2016, and the COLA, or the retiree pension increase, in January of 2015. So with this election, both of those items will meet that substantively automatic definition, and that will trigger some changes in what the city will report on its balance sheet. The major change is that the net pension liability will increase from $20 million to $60 million. City Council may remember during the budget process when we showed the difference from a funding perspective of funding ad hoc or funding as an annually repeating city. This doesn't change our contribution rate, but we have to report on our balance sheet as if we were an annually repeating city. So that liability is there, and we will now have to show it on our balance sheet. And, and some other changes from that is our funding ratio, as reported in our balance sheet, will go from 89% to 74%. And again, it does not impact our contribution rate. It is just the way that we report it on our financial statement.
Mr. Olson.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. This doesn't change our liability. We have this liability. We just haven't been reported. And that's why I've been trying to say to council for 2 years now. That liability is hanging out there. We own the liability. We haven't reported it in our balance sheet. Now we're gonna have to. So it doesn't change the rate, and it doesn't change our liability.
That's all I had, unless you have.
Mr. Mickey?
I never liked the word ad hoc, and I hate it worse now that I'm on the council. It's a nightmare scenario. But I guess what this is saying is the liability you talked about, Mr. Olson, it just, we have to report it, and it's just going to be more visible than it's been.
This is actually a more honest way to represent our,
It's going to reflect the reality, is what
It is. It's what is out there. The way we have been reporting it and the way we have been thinking about it is deceptive.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Mrs. Nash King.
Thank you. You say the net, liability increase on $50 million.
Can't hear.
Starting this year, next year.
That is just, as Mr. Olson said, that liability is there. It's the way that we have to show it on our balance sheet. So it is, when the city ad hoc approves the USC's transfer credit as well as the retiree increase, it's just the way we're funding it in a way where we haven't had to show it on our balance sheet. Now we have to actually show it on our balance sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Awful lot of question. Now that we're going to show the picture, does that have any impact on the bond?
Yes, sir, it certainly could have an impact on the bond rating. We're not the only municipality that is impacted in this accounting change, and it could have an impact, yes, sir.
I would think there would be some assessment of consideration by people to say, if you had your liability was on $20 million, and now it's it has been 60 years. Now it's reported.
Yeah,
But, your ability to sustain a might.
yeah, might, I think is the key word. What is important to keep note with and consideration with this is this impacted all cities, so the rating agencies are aware that this was out there and now it has to be shown. So it doesn't change what was already there. It's just the way that it's being reported, and so the rating agencies are aware of that.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Ms. Fleming?
Question is not asked as stupid, but I need to ask this because I'm not really understanding that, and I'm sure you can do it better than I can. The funding ratio would drop from 89% to 74%. Would you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. What the funding ratio is when you look at all of the funds that the city has to meet all the pensions now and what we're projecting that we're going to owe into the future, that is how funded we are of that. We're currently at 89% funded, which means that we have enough assets to meet 89% of that liability, and that would drop to 74%.
Continue on.
Thank you.
That's it. You're done, Mrs. Barton, on this one, right?
I'm sorry.
All right. Usually it's like, okay, I'm done. OR 18-14014, consider ordinance amending the number of authorized civil service positions for the Killeen Police Department. And you are back up, Ms. Clark.
Good evening again. The item before you is a housekeeping measure to meet legal requirements. Civil service law requires that the city council formally adopt the number of police officer authorizations by ordinance. So, it was approved during the budget process, to reduce 2 police officer authorizations. So I'm gonna start with just a little bit of background. We've been in the civil service, the system of civil service since August in 1977. One of the provisions of the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 143, is that the city establishes the civil service classifications and approves, the city council must establish the civil service authorizations, and they must approve it by ordinance. At the end of the year, last year in FY18, the police department was staffed as follows. They had 220 police officers, 24 police sergeants, 10 police lieutenants, 4 police captains, and 1 assistant chief. So within the FY19 budget approval process, the council determined to reduce 2 of the police officer authorizations, leaving a total of 218 police officers at this time, with a net savings of $520. These 2 positions were vacant when they were reduced and with the budget, and were approved to this action so that we can align the budget with FY19. Again, this is a housekeeping measure to bring decisions already made into compliance with the law. So obviously, the staff recommends that the city council authorize the city manager to execute the ordinance to amend the number of authorized civil service police positions for the Killeen Police Department to align with the FY19 budget.
Questions?
Questions, if you have questions.
Mr. Domenici.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I remember right, one of the 2 at least had been like vacant for like 13 years or something like that. These weren't patrol positions or anything like that. It's just kind of going back.
Can't talk at any time. Extensive vacancies.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mrs. Buck. Next item, OR 18-015, consider an ordinance amending the Killeen Code of Ordinance Chapter 11, Fire Prevention and Protection, by adopting the 2018 International Fire Code as amended in Appendix D pertaining to the fire apparatus access roads, plural, roads. Chief Brank, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So this agenda item is adopting the International Fire Code of 2018. And the International Fire Code and Appendix D for fire apparatus access roads, 2018 is the most current version of this standard. We currently have Force 2009 and parts of the 2015 IFC. And these are updated every 3 years. The benefits of this would be that it affords the citizens the safest buildings in which to live and work. Designers and builders will have access to the most current fire safety methods, and that assist in maintaining the lowest insurance rates for the citizens of Killeen. Some of the significant changes, there's a multitude of changes in the code itself, but a few that are in there are residential development access, which has to do with access roads into subdivisions. So some subdivisions that have more than 30 lots will be required to have 2 access points in and out rather than just 1. Fire code, safety evacuations, and lockdowns, there's some planned requirement changes for those, meaning that if they want to lock down a specific facility, we need to actually approve that. That wasn't in, I think, in previous code, or some of the previous codes. Crowd managers, so more stringent requirements when there are crowding issues or occupancy issues, and combustible decorative materials for walls and ceilings, limiting the flammability of some of the decorative things in theaters or hotels or motels. And automatic sprinkler systems that are required for any occupancies over 300 people. Alternatives considered were to maintain the same code that we have. This would not provide the most up-to-date standards, or delay until 2021 when the next version comes out. We'll approve this 2018 IFC code with amendments with an effective date of January 1st of 2019. And staff recommends the council adopt the 2018 International Code with the amendment in Appendix D. I also have fire marshal for the city of Killeen. If there's any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Rivera.
Hey, Chief, how critical is this for the ISO?
It is part and parcel of the ISO.
How partial?
Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, the exact impact of this would be measured against the new standards for an ISO grade. And there is a new set of standards coming out for ISO grading. in the future, for us to know that, we would need to do another ISO study so that we know what exactly we need to do to make sure we keep our standards up.
And I'm very concerned with that ISO, we help our citizens most when it comes to insurance, rating and so forth. And I know the Department of Insurance are ready to, some of the companies, not the Department of Insurance, but some of the companies within the Department of Insurance are looking at this area, to adjust, premium in our ISO. That's a big deal to do with this. And I'm very concerned.
Well, we're always doing better if we have the latest standards. It's hard to defend your position if you're using older standards. It's always better to have the latest standards that are available.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Doty. Chief, do we have any agreements with, anyone for manpower related to the fires in California? I know cities have some resources that are, I don't know if they're volunteers or what it is, but, or if there's agreements that are being called into place to
So
provide resources.
specifically things like California or places that are geographically a long way off, what they typically do is FEMA would activate those people. We have urban search and rescue people that we have sometimes going to hurricanes. We specifically, the city of Killeen and the firefighters from Killeen have not been deployed to places like California for wildland firefighting. And honestly, our wildland firefighting is actually in the Killeen Fire Department just now actually developing. And we are part of what's called TIFMAS, which is an interstate mutual aid program. We are part of that. We have deployed to assist with wildfires in the state of Texas. We haven't gone out of state for wildfires, but if FEMA requested, of course, if FEMA requested that, and they run out of resources with the states that are contiguous to California, then they would ask us, and then we would make a determination on what we can provide. Of course, we need to know what that's going to cost us and how many people we can provide, reasonably speaking.
Like I said, I wasn't sure if we were part of any of that. I would figure the federal resources on Fort Hood probably would be more trained in that type of work than we said.
Well, like I said, we do urban search and rescue, or send people out for that, but we haven't done wildland firefighting as far as sending anyone out of the state for those purposes.
Thank you, Council. I know it has nothing to do with IFC.
Mr. Harris.
Quick question, I like all the stuff you presented. I just have to ask a question just to make sure. When you say, residential development access, additional fire access roads required for larger developments, which is a good thing. Will those, access roads be considered as a second road into a larger development, or would that be just, specifically for emergency vehicles? That's my curiosity. When you get these larger developments, of course, like you said, you want more than one ingress and egress in there. And as far as the emergency road, I just want to make sure that, just clear it up. Is that going to be a second road, or is that going to be an emergency access road? I mean, I guess,
It's a complete second road, but I think I'm gonna let Fire Marshal Chudson address it in more detail, because I think he probably better equipped to answer this question.
It's a second road.
okay.
The fire code addresses it from an apparatus standpoint, but it's part and parcel of what he said with the, planning department also addresses it as a second access, it's just a straight road. As long as it's a fire lane, we're happy with it, but there's no reason it wouldn't be a second access.
Okay, so it'd be by everybody, but, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you, Chief. OR 18-016.
That's two city council people sitting there during a meeting, talking and carrying on, instead of paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, seriously?
Local amendments, Mr. Abbott, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Like the fire department, we're looking at adopting the 2018 building code, along with the fire code. And next slide. Our purpose is to adopt the new code. We want to request to go from 2015 code that we're currently on to the 2018 international code. And the electric code is on a different 3-year clock. And we're going to ask them to go from 2014 to the 2017 national electric code. We do have a few local amendments we'd like to present to you as well. Okay, benefits adopted new code, provide the highest quality codes and standards and options for the building construction. Protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community while requiring safe or safer buildings. Provide minimum standards for energy efficient buildings. And maintain and improve our insurance, services offered for ISO rated, property insurance service. Next slide. In March of this year, the building department was evaluated by the ISO, and we scored a 4, lower the number, the better the score. Back in 2015, we scored 4 and 5, so we're actually a little better, and I think we've done better than various cities next to us. So our residential and commercial scored very well. One of the few key changes that we'd like to propose, increase the single family fee rate. The current rate is 11.5 cents per square foot. It's been that way since 2005. We're asking an increase to 13 cents a square foot. And one more fee, we're looking at the curb cut fee and street cut permit fees. We were merging into one right-of-way permit. When the engineering office reviews the fee, we'll say, so it makes sense that some of the significant items in the new building codes, like fire department have, smoke and carbon monoxide lines will require an alteration to the code if you do a garage conversion, there's an auto house, it's like a permit. The code is gonna make sure we have no carbon monoxide as in new construction. So if one goes off, it won't go off. The exceptions of that is like a re-roof, something really just outside the fence. The community safety regulations for solar, when they put them on the roof, you have to have room in the apartment, you have to open the roof.
Do you want to type it up and then just email it to me? That way
The framing sections, very first page and options to invest in
around for $3
the
tomorrow.
walls over for roof framing. So the code is give them more options for that. And then safety devices required for clothing, the washing machine, the dishwasher that just shut off. There are safety devices that are not okay. Next slide. The newer codes, they provide more options for energy code compliance. If you have mixed residential and commercial buildings, we have one out on Third Street for the bottom is retail and the top is apartment. Residential, you meet the residential energy code, commercial, there's going to be 2 codes in that case. School occupancies have been given enhanced security measures for locking arrangements designed to keep intruders out. And the state of Texas, through Texas Department of License Regulations, TDR, they adopt the electric code, the national electric code across the state. And so we're actually catching up with it with the 2017. One more thing, we removed some older local electrical amendments to align with the new state adopted electric code. Next. So the alternatives to approve the ordinance is amended, delay the adoption until 2021, and go further there. Next. We had a public hearing, we looked at the construction board, the construction board, staff goes through them, we present all the pages, and we did public hearings, we invited the home builders, and we did all that on October 11th. and the board unanimously recommends adoption of these codes and amendments for minor administrative features.